Hey everyone, welcome to the Illumineers Quest podcast where we talk everything Lorcana. I'm Zach.
And I'm Jacob.
And thanks for coming on this journey with us. And this is a journey. This is the first episode for us.
It is. I've done one podcast before, so I know a little bit of what we're getting into, but not a whole ton.
And I'm brand new to the podcasting game, but I've always wanted to, and I've tried with other friends before, but nobody's ever committed, and so this is super exciting.
I'm in.
I think we're both over the moon for this release too. We're recording this the Friday before the release of the set.
Yeah.
So we have 1 week to go.
Yeah.
So with the first episode and with everybody getting to know us, we figured we'd just kind of start off and kick off the background on us. So I'll go first. Talking about just kind of our history with trading card games and TCG in general. Mm-hmm. I've collected Pokemon cards forever, as long as I can remember. I mean, I still have my original base set cards from 97, 98 in the States. I've never played the game though. That's the exciting part is, we've talked about this and we really want to play Lorcana as well. So not just collecting the cards, but playing. Yeah, so that's kind of the big one for me.
I'm used to looking at Pokemon cards and just seeing random numbers and words on there that I had no idea what they meant. So I'm excited. I'm really excited. I've never played, again, like you, I've never played a TCG game before, so...
I think this one's a little less intimidating. Maybe we're naive and don't understand Pokemon to that degree, but with all of the weaknesses and strengths against different types and all the energies and all the items and everything, it seems a lot more
accessible.
Yeah, Lorcana just seems a lot easier. We went through the app and we looked at how to play and all the basics and everything. And I felt like right away we pretty much had it. We've asked each other questions back and forth this week, getting ready still on a few of the minor details. But in general, we feel pretty good, I think.
Yeah, it was really accessible to me for sure. I know there's still I know certain people that it's too complicated still, but
we'll get them there.
We'll get them there.
We'll be the ambassadors.
Yeah.
But yeah. So you said you've collected Pokemon cards, but you've never played either.
Collected Pokemon cards for probably about four years, I would say, and then I'm currently collecting sports cards. So I'm still into the collecting cards right now, but again, never played a TCG or anything like it.
Okay, and what's your plans? I guess we didn't really talk about this phase, but what's your plans with the cards? Are you just gonna play? Are you collecting too, or what's your goal here?
My plan is to just play. That's my main goal is
no collecting.
I mean, I'd like to get the base set of every chapter if I could. That's
Hollows and
not
regulars,
not a master
or just
set.
Complete a set.
Not a master set. I just base set.
Okay. That's super obtainable, right? That's incredibly easy.
Yeah.
Even if you can't get every legendary, those, I would imagine, buying the singles are still relatively cheap. They can't be over $20.
They're not as of right now, but probably as we get closer, they'll lower.
Yeah, once everything releases, I would imagine it's cheap.
Yeah, because a few days ago, we were seeing the Genie Enchanted selling for $5,000. So,
and those have already come. I've been watching on eBay a little bit on those,
and
I've
so
seen
much,
ever since Gen Con, which was last weekend. Now, I've seen a lot of cards going in the hundreds now, not the thousands. Mm-hmm. So still obviously expensive, but right in range with what you would expect from an alt art Charizard or something.
Right now it is. The sales are doing better than the rarest card in the newest Pokemon set. So, and I think that comes with it being the first set for sure.
Yep. So
it'll probably drop over time, and we don't even know print runs or anything like that, how much they're making.
Yeah.
So that all could.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest difference though. Is I definitely want to collect. I want everyone. I want all the enchanteds. I want all the. Okay. I want.
Wow. Yeah.
I want all the foils. I want it all. Especially like you said, it's the first set. It's definitely memorable. We're huge Disney fans. I guess we talked about the TCG side, but we didn't say Disney. We're both obviously massive Disney fans too. Yeah. That's kind of what
lifelong.
We were friends before, but Disney definitely brought our
it was Disney
us close
quiz nights.
Together. Yeah,
Disney quiz nights. And that's what.
And Disney.
We're used to watching a bunch of Disney movies in preparation for something, which I've been doing for this.
That I've heard. Yeah. So. Yeah, it's exciting. I think, if you compare to, something like Pokemon, you don't have probably quite as many like named characters as you do with Disney. I mean, obviously, I think if you go pick out minor characters and whoever, then I'm sure you could come up with more. But the way that they're doing those cards, and where you have like 2 or 3 Aladdins with different skill sets or different variations, I think is pretty cool too.
Yeah, they're not gonna run out of characters anytime soon by doing that for sure. They're really smart with how they're doing it, I think.
Yeah.
And then the Dreamborn and Floodborn characters they're doing, I love that. I love that.
Let's come back to that because I've read a little bit about that, but I'm not an expert on it by any means.
Okay, yeah, we can come back to that.
But the next thing that we said we were going to talk about is like how do we hear about Lorcana? Because I feel like we've talked about this for a long time now, and a long time ago we initially had the conversation.
Yes.
And then obviously it kind of fizzled out, but now that it's right around the corner, we are both like over the moon hype.
Yeah, I think the reason it fizzled out is because we didn't want to get excited, about a year in advance.
That's very true.
Because if we researched everything at that point in time, like we did now, we would have been this hyped for a year and would have been just waiting. This whole time.
That would have been a nightmare for sure.
So like slowly these past few weeks we've been getting into like everything about Lorcana.
So it was D23, right? Like we both knew coming out of D23. And I think we talked about it a little bit then and like, hey, did you see the card game? And then I want to say it was the beginning of this year though. We were hanging out and we were talking about it, and we said we have to learn how to play this game and like actually play, not just like with Pokemon like we mentioned, but like actually get together and play the game and learn how to compete. I guess.
Once I saw that it was all like single digit numbers, and to be honest, like when I saw the cards were single digit numbers on like the stats and stuff, like I can do this. Like it's not 250 HP, and it's like I can do small math.
That's a good topic too. Actually, what do you think about the currency of the system, the lore, the ink, the strength and the weakness, or that's not the strength and the weakness, but the
strength and willpower.
Yeah,
right?
Willpower. That's what I was trying to say. So, what do you think about like the currency of all of the system and all the different pieces? Do you like that? Do you think it's?
I think it works fine. It makes it, in my opinion, more accessible. That's what made me want to like.
I think it's cool because I'm sure you've heard a little bit about like the back end of the story too, where the lore and the ink is because the players are building the story as you go, and so like from that respect it makes it pretty cool too. And then obviously like strength and willpower are pretty straightforward, but it's a very Disney twist, right? Like willpower is very much like a
for sure
I'm a hero like your normal Disney movie. And so I like it.
I think Ravensburger has done a great job with like incorporating all the Disney-ness like into it. They've done a really good job. The
songs.
Songs.
I mean, that's a cool twist. I mean, it's very much just an item or an action.
Yeah.
With a little twist on it, but I mean,
so smart.
When you think Disney, I would imagine there's a good chunk of people out there that think, "Let It Go."
Yeah.
Whatever A Whole New World, like you name it, Under the Sea, like there's so many Disney classics.
Are those cards going to get people singing in their local
gaming
stores?
That's what they said. I've watched a couple interviews with the Ravensburger guys, and they've said, if you're playing in like a big group setting, that you'll hear people all over the floor just like bust out in song.
That'd be exciting. That'd be fun.
I don't have the singing chops to do that.
I mean, neither of us do, but
depending on the situation in the game, if you throw out A Whole New World and it like turns the tide for you,
that card
for the positive, you might bust out the Whole New World. So
that card definitely could.
Okay, so tell me about Dreamborn and Floodborn, because you're before that thought. You're like the scholar of us too. I guess like the dynamic here is you're very much the scholar, and you've been studying a lot to understand like all the ins and outs of everything.
That's how my brain works. I can't get into something without knowing everything about it. Like that's just how my brain works.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, and we're different people, and I've kind of said I've taken the YOLO approach, and I think I have 6 decks now where I've just been tinkering around, playing with the app and looking through the card lists and building out decks and understanding what the different things are and trying to come up with like a win condition of that deck that's kind of unique. And so that's, we have very different perspectives going into this. So I think, when everything comes out and we do start to play against each other, it'll be cool to see how those different like styles leading up to that, how that transfers into the first week of gaming.
Yeah. I mean, I have 8 pre-built decks all on Ruby Amethyst because I'm trying to master that already. But like,
you've probably come up with just about all the good combinations that you can then.
I really like Ruby Amethyst. That's what I've
okay, and we'll come back to that one too, because obviously you want to talk about the decks. But okay, Dreamborn, Floodborn. Give me more background on the cards and the history.
So, I think it's the story and like lore of Lorcana is limited right now. I don't think
No, they've definitely talked about a little bit of it, but they have said that they're going to expand on it in the future releases for sure.
But the main idea with Dreamborn and Floodborn is that they're Disney characters in ways you've never seen them before, and they're kind of like, if you know Marvel, like a multiverse kind of concept where they're pulled out of different points in those multiverses basically, and they just look different.
So what's the difference between Dreamborn and Floodborn then?
So they say Floodborn. So Dreamborn is like you as the Illumineer pull out these characters from different universes, where Floodborn were created by a dark, I think like a dark energy, I think is what they were kind of hinting towards. Like they were more created by something else.
That like I said, I've heard the interviews, but I just couldn't remember what they said, and so that makes perfect sense, and I'm pretty sure that's in line with what
it might be a little different. That's definitely not quoted.
No, but you're on the right line. You're on the right track for sure. Okay, so I think we're like moving on to the next piece then, I guess. Like we've kind of already touched on this, but like what have we been doing to get ready for this? I feel like all we've talked about this week is Lorcana. Literally. Just nonstop.
We haven't talked about anything else.
No, this is it.
My family is getting tired of it already, but that's why I just talk to Zach. I text him every day.
That's what it's all about though.
Zach, and I look forward to it every morning, literally texts me 10 days, I've been giving
you the countdown for a long time now.
I love it. I look forward to it every morning. It's the best. And again, I've been watching Disney movies. I've watched Treasure Planet, Tangled, Sword in the Stone, Atlantis, all my favorites.
Oh man, I definitely haven't gone into like the full Disney rabbit hole. There have been like I've thought about doing that, but I've just spent, like I touched on, most of my time like reading about the different cards and like deck strategy, or a little bit getting into deck guides. I don't want to go like the super meta route and just come up with something that like everybody else has. Like, you know, I want to come up with something that I can put my stamp on and feel like I made it, versus just stealing somebody else's work and going with it. So that's part of why I've done it. But yeah, I've gone through all the different ink types. I have thoughts on all of them, trying to just get ready from that respect, and just having a different feel for all of those so you can potentially play them differently. Yes. I mean, I still have like an overarching like opinion on how it should be played based on what we've heard so far. But again, being a complete newbie to this and trying to learn as we go, I could be 100% wrong too.
Yeah, like I don't know about you, but once I saw Evasive's
huge. Evasive's huge.
I think people are sleeping on it. I haven't seen much talk around it.
I think Evasive could, depending on your opponent, obviously, if they're heavy Evasive, it could be really, really, really annoying.
So that's my main focus with Amethyst and Ruby. That's why I've been planning on that, is because Ruby is obviously, I would say, the leading in
Evasive. It's definitely leading Evasive.
And Amethyst is number one for card draw. You know, you keep drawing cards more than one turn.
Yep.
So it gives you more Evasives to play with, has you a better chance of cards that I have in those decks to deal with other stuff. So
yeah, here's kind of, I guess, a subtopic on this, but so just like your thoughts, so we've been spending all this time getting ready and trying to figure out everything. So I think we have to give our thoughts on the different ink types and what where we want to play and what we think is going to fit our play style. You kind of just talked about yours. Is there anything to elaborate on, or does that cover it?
What I'm going to kind of focus on is, like, for instance, Evasive. Like, I want to go as much into that as I can, and then the rest of the cards are things to help if things go wrong. Like, that's my number one. That's like, so like in Ruby Amethyst, I'll bring up my deck here to
Yeah, while he's doing that, yeah, I mean, I think evasive is, really, really powerful. Obviously, for those who are still getting into it, evasive is the power that the characters with evasive can only be attacked by other characters with evasive. And so if you have an evasive character and I don't, then I can't ever challenge your characters with that evasive power.
And the main idea is to not challenge with evasive characters. You're just questing the whole time.
Yes. Well, yes. And so if you quest and make yourself vulnerable,
Yeah.
then the opponent doesn't have a challenge, or doesn't have a person with evasive to challenge, then you can just sit there and quest and quest and quest
Yeah.
and quest, and it'll be really hard. So I guess the hope there is if you're not going to challenge them, that you just outlore them faster somehow. I mean, that's the only counterplay, right?
There's only one evasive card that has more than 2 lore, so there's not. There's not.
Which one is that? Is it?
That's the Mickey,
That's right.
Little Taylor.
Yeah, it's Pongo, Mickey.
There's Tigger.
Yep, Tigger's red as well.
Tigger has one. Goofy has one. And these are all the ones in Ruby. And then if you go to Amethyst, which this is one of my favorite cards, but it's Pascal. He's 1 cost, 1 willpower, 1 strength, 1 lore. But he has evasive, so he's a 1 cost evasive, and I think that's really valuable to have a 1 cost evasive, even if it has.
The Pascal one is pretty cool too. It's a little unconventional from evasive in the sense of you have to have another character in play for him to be evasive.
Yep.
But that being said, he's still evasive at that point, and so. Yeah, I pulled up the list while we were talking about that too. So Jetsam, which you and I talked about, Jetsam Flotsam. Tinkerbell, Genie, the Genie Shift, is that what you call it? I'm still in the Pokemon world where I think evolution, but it's the shifted Genie. Like what's the proper way to?
So I've seen people just say their subtitles, so like right below their name. That's how the people defer them.
So Genie Power Unleashed. You're right.
Okay.
That's a lot. So to learn all those right off the bat, but yeah. So
yes,
Genie Power Unleashed. Who is Emerald, and then Peter Pan Neverlanding, also Emerald, has evasive, and then last Emerald being Tinkerbell Most Helpful, also has evasive, and then yes, there's 4 Ruby that have evasive as well, being the Goofy, Mickey, Pongo, and Tigger you already mentioned.
Yeah. But so in my Ruby Amethyst deck, I build around those evasive cards, but also have like Dragonfire, which is the 5 cost, instantly banishes anything action.
Yep.
So if things
pretty intense.
If they've got like a Mother Gothel, where your evasive cards can't quest and they're not very strong, so you don't really want to challenge. Bring out a Dragonfire.
You love Mother Gothel too.
I'm expecting it in almost every deck.
Okay.
I'm worried about it more. So I have Dragonfire pretty much everywhere I can.
That's fair.
Be Prepared. It's a song, 7 costs.
Huge song.
It banishes all characters, including your own, so opponents and yours. So if things are just going completely terrible, you just get rid of everything and start from scratch, and then bring up your evasives again.
Yep.
That's kind of like cards to help you deal with if things are going completely wrong.
Yeah, we talked about. Well, I guess we might have even skipped over the ink and the cost. Like we might, we probably need to assume that nobody. Yeah, okay, we'll backtrack a little bit here. So the ink is the currency that you use to play cards.
Yes.
If I'm ever wrong here, stop me and correct me. So ink is where you, like your energy from Pokemon that you use to make your cards playable.
Yes, absolutely.
The difference here is that you can only get 1 additional ink per turn, and the way that you do that is taking cards that can be turned into ink.
Which is not every card.
No, it's not every card, and so you have to build off of that as well. But the cards that can be converted into ink, you can do that 1 per turn. So you can't come out first hand and play a massive, incredible, powerful hand because those cards just aren't available to you yet. And so that's another big thing that like I've been thinking of pretty heavily as I've been preparing this week for a release and like trying to understand the game dynamics is not only like character and power, manipulation, if you will, of like your opponent, but also like managing your resources with ink, because that one I think could make or break your deck too. Like if you have the wrong breakdown of cards and everything's
Yes.
way too heavy, then for your first 3 or 4 turns, your opponent's just sitting there questing with no repercussions because there's nothing you can do.
Absolutely. Like most of my decks, they have probably 4 or 5 one costs, like specific cards, and those will have like 3 or 4 each.
Yeah.
Just so, and you make sure you pick helpful one cost cards so you can use them in the later game if you need distractions or just need an extra lore to quest.
Right.
Like, I don't think there's a downside to having like 4 or 5 one costs.
No, and I'm pretty sure I'm the same way. I think the majority of my decks have not different cards, but just in total, the number of cards that cost 1, whether you have multiples of them or not, is probably 8 to 12. So like 2 or 3 or 4 separate cards.
Yeah.
That add up to that, so that you have a good chance of getting a couple of them in your starting hand.
You want to hopefully play on turn 1. Hopefully to either start questing.
Yeah, you probably need 2, right? Because you need one to ink, or you need. Well, I guess you can ink anything.
You can ink anything.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be one cost, but you definitely want to have one in there so that you can ink and then play.
Yep.
So, yeah. So your Ruby Amethyst is like where your like main focus is right
just
now.
A disclaimer. So I study all of these inks individually, one card at a time, and try to, like, as I'm looking at the cards, work through their synergies, what else they work with. So it takes me a while to get through all the inks, and I haven't got to Sapphire yet.
Yeah, and that's a big one too, because we
I know
again we're backtracking again because there's just so much to talk about. But for each deck, you can have a max of 2 ink types, and initially you have those starter decks, and it's like, okay, so these inks are paired together, but you can obviously, once you get everything and you build out your collection or deck or set, then you can pair any 2 inks together. It doesn't have to be from that starter deck. And so that was I guess an eye-opening one too, that you thought like, okay, we can like really think outside the box versus just within that starter deck.
And then even there's certain types of tournaments that are being hosted already that it's rainbow, so you can do
I have seen that too. Obviously, for people starting out, you go and get 5 packs the day of, and you play with those cards.
Yeah, no
so it's like
what.
I think it was 40 card minimum, so you have to get 4 packs.
Yes, yeah,
and then you go from there. But yeah, so as we're talking about this, I'll kind of give my thoughts on them because I've taken the different approach, and then Jake, like he said, he's been really like he knew what he wanted to do, and you've been diving into that. I've been all over the board, kind of dealing with all of them in bits and pieces.
That's probably best for a podcast. Is 2 different points.
Yeah, for sure. That's why we're doing this. And so I'll run through them real quick, and as we go, you can give me your thoughts. So Amber is the deck that's, I think, or the ink that's probably most well known for like its healing ability. It has a lot of characters that can take damage, that can take damage away from characters that have been challenged but not knocked out.
Overall, it works with pretty much any ink color, I think.
Yeah, because it is very supportive. You take the damage off, it's very supportive, like you said. That's a good way to put it. And you can help the rest of the characters out there questing or getting challenged to stay alive and to continue on those quests and challenges.
Yeah.
Amethyst, I won't even read it. You tell me Amethyst because that's your baby.
So one of my favorite things about Amethyst is there's lots of cards that work on reviving cards and then drawing multiple cards in the same turn. So there are lots of Dr. Facilier based cards work on that. So it's more work. It's not necessarily something that color you want to build around. It's more you use that to build around another.
That's your win condition.
Yeah.
I mean, in other games, I play, or like video games even, there's like the main focus that you have that's going to win you the game, and that's like your Charizard, and I'm just making stuff up, but like that's the big bad thing that's going to like win you the game. So there's support, and then the main piece is your win condition. Yeah.
So like Ruby, like in my Ruby Amethyst, Ruby would be the number one attack, go win me the game, and then Amethyst would be to help that.
By drawing cards.
By drawing cards, and then if cards get banished, I can bring them back with certain cards.
Yeah.
So it's again one of those other support colors, I'd say.
And then Emerald is as it's described as the flexible ink. It kind of
it gives you the most control.
You can play it how you have a little bit of, you can control, but you can also kind of flex how you want to play it, specifically depending on the characters that you pick from within the set.
If you play Emerald right, you are keeping the pressure on your opponent the entire game. Like, they have to react to what you're doing with Emerald. You constantly can. There's so many cards in there that turn the tide in your favor, and no matter what's going on in the game.
Yeah, and that's the flexible piece, right?
Yeah.
Like, whatever's happening, you can hopefully be able to adapt to that and keep going.
Yeah, then there's so many cards. It's like, I'm questing, deal with it. You figure out how to deal with it, and it's really fun. I think we'll get to Steel later, but I think Steel Emerald is going to be absolutely insane.
Okay. Well, Steel is after Ruby here. So Ruby is the aggressive one, and
Yes.
I would say it's considered aggressive. One, we talked about evasion. It's tied with Emerald for the most evasive characters, which, again, can only be attacked or challenged by other evasive characters. One of my favorite ones is the Rush attribute or ability, where you can play it, and then that turn you can play your character. So again, taking a little step back and giving context. With characters, when you play a character, you can't quest or challenge that turn.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Right.
you have to play them and then wait for your next turn to actually be able to quest for more lore or to challenge another character. But with the Rush ability, you can go quest or challenge that turn and try to get a quick leg up on whoever you're playing.
It's fun. It's definitely a fun way to play, for sure. You can just instantly pop out a card and get damage just like that on it.
Yeah, it can really catch somebody off guard. Because
Yes.
normally you kind of have to build up to it, by
They
waiting
know
a
what's
turn.
coming,
Yeah,
usually.
so you can see what's coming. So Steel, if you like Steel too, I'll give you the floor on Steel.
So Steel, in my opinion, is the best, not necessarily for like the abilities on the cards, but for the stats. Like, just
Strong and defensive.
Card stats are insane. So they're really helpful to pair with like an Emerald, where you have control with Emerald, and then this is just more tank heavy cards that have higher attack. And that's the main focus, is not necessarily abilities, is just the cards and the stats themselves. Of course,
Yep.
there's cards that have great abilities in Steel, but like I don't know if you've seen the card Grab Your Sword. It's a big AoE attack action card, I believe. And then there's the giant Tinkerbell card. That's is it a Floodborn or Dreamborn? I forget.
The giant Tinkerbell is probably one of the. It is a Floodborn, and it's Tinkerbell Giant Fairy. It's probably one of the more talked about cards as well that I've seen, because it is pretty popular. She has the ability to, or I'll just read it. It's the Tinkerbell Rock the Boat. When you play this character, deal 1 damage to each opposing character. So just if a opposing character is 1 away from, and you give them that extra damage, they're banished.
Yeah,
so quickly turn the tides on that one.
Absolutely.
And then secondly, during your turn, when you play when this character banishes another character in a challenge, you may deal 2 damage to another chosen character. So again, super defensive and brute force attack, like doing a ton of damage to a ton of people.
And I think this card basically tells you what Steel is all about. Like, it just is.
It does.
So it works with any kind of, and you use those support colors to work with it and help it out. I don't know if you necessarily want to pair like Ruby Steel. You could, but I think you more want to pair Steel with like a supportive color.
Okay, last one, and I'll leave this one since you're still on Sapphire, but I'll tell you what my thoughts are on it, and you can tell me what you think. So, Sapphire is a lot of like tinkerers, meaning like Maurice, who's like an inventor kind of. But what I more view it as, you talked about Amethyst being the card drawer. I've used Sapphire as the ink builder.
Okay.
So there are a couple cards in Sapphire that will really help build up your inkwell fast. So if you want to play like a really, get to those bigger cost cards faster, or, to build your ink reserves quicker than your opponent can, Sapphire is the way to go.
I love that. Yeah.
So Sapphire is one of my favorites. I don't think I have like a go-to yet. Like I said, I've kind of just been all over the board building decks and looking at different cards and trying to come up with what I would say is different, like strong win conditions or kind of outside the box win conditions, and get to a place where you can like catch your opponent off guard. So that's why I like that, is because I feel like building up that ink reserve and really catching them off guard where your opponent has maybe 3 or 4 ink and you've got 7 or 8 ink.
Yeah, like, that's huge.
That can steamroll really quickly into a bad time for your opponent.
That's winning you the game almost every time, for sure.
Yeah, so knowing that you haven't like fully researched Sapphire yet, you might not have heard about this one, but one of the more popular cards that I've seen people talk about is Grammatala. Are you familiar with this one?
I do know that card.
Okay,
yeah.
So that's probably one. It's a 2-cost card, or 2-cost ink card, so relatively low. But the kicker here is that's really cool. Is so you can quest for 1 lore, which helps you win the game.
Yes. Yeah.
But when that character is banished, you don't banish it to your discard pile. You banish it to your inkwell. And so you're getting lore out of it, and you're getting additional ink. And so if your opponent doesn't want to challenge them, then you just sit there and you keep questing. You just keep questing, and eventually it adds up, and there's just nothing else they can do. So they have to address it, like they have to attack it. But if they attack it, then it's a benefit for you as well.
Yeah, and a 2-cost ink is, I think, insane value for what you're getting here.
Yeah.
It's either a distraction card or it's helping you. You just continue questing.
That's exactly my thought.
For 2 ink, that's great. So good. I mean, it's doing exactly, no matter what, it's doing what you want.
Yeah.
Nothing negative is coming out of it.
Exactly. It's off of such a cheap card too. I think it's really, really gonna be a cool one to play.
And it's I think it's uncommon rarity, so it's a more common card to pull as well. So
yeah, there you go. All right. Anything else you want to say on inks or play styles or thoughts going in?
I have had, even though I've been focusing on Ruby Amethyst, I've had so much fun seeing what inks and colors work together best. Like it's been so much fun to just like, oh yeah, this specific card works really well with this specific card, even though it's not a specific, like saying, hey, this card helps X card. They work together and they're in 2 separate inks. And when you find stuff like that, it makes deck building just so much fun.
Yeah, you definitely have a leg up on me on that one, because I haven't necessarily thought about the synergies super in depth yet. I've just kind of taken that support / win condition approach and said, okay, I want to go pretty heavy on the attack front, and so I'm going to need somebody to heal those. And so you take Amber as your support, and whatever you want to be, like a Steel as your Punisher, and then or Evasive. We talked a lot about Evasive. I like that a lot too. So it's, hey, how can I support Evasive in that front? So it's like I'm more thinking like win condition, but yeah, I think those synergies and like understanding the inks as a whole better is going to be a big benefit.
Yep. And what's going to be helpful too is the more you know it now, the more you can adapt to when later sets come out. So
and not get caught off guard. I think, especially going into the everybody's new at this. I mean, I assume there's people that have been studying it for a couple months now.
Since it announced, yeah.
But for the most part, everybody's going to be a new player. And so, there's going to be a lot of adapting really fast, because we're going to try something, I'm going to flame out, and it's going to be terrible, and you got to go build something else real fast. And so that's kind of another reason I kind of built a few, is like, try this one out. Is it terrible? Sure. Let's try this one instead.
Yeah. And I think, and this is just to kind of like prepare yourself for beginning. I'm getting all 3 starter decks, so I can kind of use those to build off of whatever, and it gives you a good base of cards. There's usually multiple of each card, so it gives you a good base to build off of. And then we're getting some other ways of getting cards, and the build off of those.
Yeah, we found a local. We're lucky. We had a local store that seemed to be really fortunate with the amount of stuff they were receiving. So I think we're going to get everything we want.
Yeah.
Opening week next week when we go. So yeah, next Friday we'll be able to go get our starter decks and a couple packs and see what we get and build our decks and go from there.
Yeah. I'm so excited. So excited.
Yeah. So that's a perfect transition actually into like, what are we going to be doing on release? Like what's the plan next week? We talked about it a little bit, but
so that same local store is holding a starter deck tournament the day August 18th.
Yeah.
I think we're planning on participating in that. I think.
Yeah, that's the plan. If assuming everything goes to plan, and they're still, or have enough interest, maybe. I think that was the plan when we talked to them. But if they have enough interest and everybody's going to be there, then playing the starter deck tournament and maybe play each other a few times on the side.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have a favorite starter deck?
Probably Ruby Emerald, just because we've already said a bunch. I think Ruby with the evasive, especially on, a deck that kind of was within the confines of what you're given. You don't necessarily can't prepare to play evasive.
Yeah.
Then that could be really punishing.
You don't have a whole lot in the other starter decks to react to evasive.
No,
unless you're playing Ruby Emerald.
Yeah, and so it could catch you off guard, and I think you have to like build up the Pongo. Pongo's a 4 ink cost card.
But such good value once you get there.
But yeah, if you can get there fast and get him out, and then just keep him going without any, defense, then
if you have 4 Pongos in Ruby deck, you're playing 4 every time. I think because you want to.
I would. Yeah, he in the Ruby in one of the Ruby decks. Spoiler alert! In one of the Ruby decks I built, I'd have 4 Pongos.
Yeah, me too. Every time.
So. Yeah, so go get their stuff that we ordered, and hopefully pick up our decks first thing, and get our starter decks and play on the local.
Get my villain playmat and villain sleeves and villain deck box.
Timeout. We totally missed that part. We were debating names for the podcast, and it was almost the good guy and the villain, because Jake is very much a villain sympathizer, and I'm always against the villains.
In anything like Marvel, Star Wars, Disney, I always sympathize with the villains, not the terrible ones. Like the absolutely terrible ones, they can go do their thing. I'm not a fan of theirs, but
yeah. So Jake went bad guy.
Yeah.
On all the accessories.
Yeah.
Deck box, playmat.
I've got the Maleficent playmat, the hook sleeves, hook deck box, and then the binder is the Evil Queen.
Yeah, so see, evil all the way. The only accessory I've got so far is the Steamboat Mickey, Steamboat Willie, really nice. However you want to call it.
I like that one a lot.
Playmat, but yeah. So go there. I'm hoping we can go when they open first thing. They open at noon. I hope we're there right as they open.
I plan on it.
Yeah, don't know what time the tournament is. Like I said, when we went and pre-ordered the stuff, they said that's what their plan was for the day. But I would imagine it's probably later that night. So maybe we hang out until then, get acquainted, have a couple battles ourselves.
Yeah, I'm planning on going to the store sometime soon to get some more, see if there's any more information. But it's again, I've never played a TCG before, so I don't know if there's like TCG playing etiquette or anything like that.
No, that's a very good point. We can't stress this enough. Help us out. Like if you have any comments or anything to help us,
like one of my biggest things is,
let us know.
Do I talk to my opponent at all? Like, do I spell out like every action I'm taking? Like, do I say, hey, I'm questing this is giving me 2 lore?
I think I think you have. I don't think that's like necessarily etiquette. I mean, I see where you're going, but I think that's just making sure. I mean, we're all new to this too, and so I think just talking about your moves, especially with a bunch of people playing the game for the first time, it'll probably keep people from doing stuff they're not supposed to unintentionally, not not on purpose, but making sure that we're all staying within the confines of the game and having fun. But yeah, you're just going out there. I've never played anybody either, so just go out there, have a good time, and build a couple new friendships, or build the Lorcana community of our area.
Yeah, and the community is strong already. It's building already.
It seems like it.
It's fun. So that's where you guys, the audience, come in to help us out a little bit.
Yes,
if you haven't,
we definitely need help. As we initially started off here, we've never played a TCG. We need help. We want to learn, and if anybody along the way can help us out and get better at this, then
that'd be great. Yeah,
we build a community too. And one thing that I found today, actually not too long ago, there's a site called dreamborn.inc, and you can build decks and share them. And so it would be cool as like a community to like build decks and share them and get feedback and stuff. And so I don't have, this is kind of leading into or the as we were talking about, like, what are we doing on release? Like, we're going to be trying out these decks and stuff.
Yeah, as much as we can.
Yeah, I don't, I have, like I said, I have 6 decks that I've built and kind of played around with, and I've even tinkered with them since I finished them, and I'm like, oh, I didn't consider this, and I've gone back and tweaked it a little bit. But I don't know if it's going to work or not, and so maybe once we play and we figure stuff out next week, we have an idea of what works, like we can, start to post some of that stuff and create some decks for everybody to, start using as well if they like the idea.
Yeah, the deck building and like strategy that's going to go into this with building, and it's going to be so much fun.
The deck building and strategy has to be like what, 75% of the game? I mean, if you go in with all 1-cost cards that don't have any real abilities or whatever, then you're doomed from the start. So the deck building has to be a huge part of it.
And I mean that's going to be something that gets better, I think, for everyone. As longer this goes on, it gets better, I think, for everyone. You learn more.
Yeah, I mean, again, we touched on at the beginning. People have been playing Pokemon, the TCG, now for 20 years, so they have all of that built up knowledge. All of us Lorcana fans, we're all coming along this journey together, which is why we're starting this now.
Yep, starting from the beginning and learning all the stuff they add later on as it goes.
Yeah. So last question: what are you most excited for? Release week, 1 week away. What are you most excited for?
Just to see, I want to see how I can't wait for the excitement that people are building around it. Like, I want to see, like, does this Lorcana really become a thing? A community. I'm excited for that. And of course to start opening some product and see what we pull. Again, I'm really excited to start playing against other people in competitions and stuff. I'm excited for that.
I think it'll be cool to have just another activity and like try to build a community, like we said. I think it'll be a lot of fun to play and learn a new thing, and I'm very much into the strategy side as well. I don't, not near as much as you. I can't take that much credit, but I think the limitations aren't there. Like, if you want to come up with something super creative, like, go do it and see if it works. Like, the ability for you to make this game your own is definitely there. So I think that'll be really fun. And then I just want to pull an Enchanted. I know that's a lot to ask. The pull rates seem very low, but if we pull it, imagine we pull an Enchanted out of the 1 pack in the starter box. How crazy would that be?
And we've gotten a few booster packs displays coming our way too. So if we don't pull one out of those,
we're going all in. Yeah.
If we don't pull one out of those and pull one in our
I know. That's what I mean.
It'd be so good.
We start with the starter decks, and we get, we open a few things to just get ready to play, and in the booster pack that's in the starter deck, you open the Enchanted. That would be an insane, I mean, the lowest absolutely. Possibility ever. But imagine we start our Lorcana journey with an Enchanted rare in the starter deck pack.
I would have to keep it. Like, I know I've thought about, like, what to do with Enchanted if I pull one, but if it's in my first pack.
Oh, yeah, that's the good luck for your
I'll rub it on every other pack, just before I open it.
That's your good luck for playing Lorcana for the rest of its existence. Yeah. Like, that's all it is. So, yeah, I'm excited, I think, most for being able to play and have something new to interact with. It's been so long since we've talked about this, and all the D23 cards that have been floating out there, and now all the Gen Con stuff. So all the hype's just building. I'm just ready.
I know. We're so excited.
All right. Well, I think that wraps it up. Is there anything else that we missed? Any final things that you wanna talk about?
No, I just want to touch into the community a little bit that we're building here. I think slowly. Yeah. Probably.
Go for it.
But just let us know if you have anything that you want us to get into that maybe is going under the radar in most other places touching Lorcana. Let us know your strategies once the game comes out. I think would be the funnest thing is. And what was the website you said? The
Dreamborn.inc.
Yeah, and interact with that. I think that'd be really fun. Is the decks that people are sharing on there really create a community within this podcast. Yeah,
for sure. Too. So on that same vein, you can find us on Twitter at Lorcana Pod. We're also going to be posting the podcast to YouTube on the Illumineers Quest YouTube channel.
And we might. I'm even thinking about adding images of certain cards we're talking about on the YouTube channel as we're talking about them too.
Yeah, so we're gonna build this out and do it right. And then lastly, if you have any questions or want to, email us. We have Gmail, just lorcanapod@gmail.com as well. So there's a few of the different places you can reach us and continue to come with us on the Lorcana journey
I'm so excited.
As we go on this quest. So, all right. Well, thanks everyone, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye.